Okay, so the video we are watching today is called Artist Speedpaint to Disprove AI Claims Raises Even More Suspicious. Suspicion by Cat and Chat. I like her, by the way. I've watched her videos before. I like her.
We have another case of a TikToker who is faking their art process with AI art, allegedly. Now, a disclaimer before I get into this, the original video has now been deleted along with like everything from that person's account. So the videos that I will be showing you are like downloaded recordings that other people have posted. So as a result, some of the stuff might be a little bit jank. And again, this is all alleged. This is me and internet creators' theories, but the stuff does look a bit suspicious to me.
Okay, can I just say, TikTok is the very definition of brain rot. Anything coming from TikTok, I'm just immediately not taking seriously. It is the very definition of brain rot. Also, my own personal opinions about AI, believe it or not, I'm not inherently against AI. I'm against liars. If someone wants to post AI and be like, okay, this is AI, uses the proper tags, makes it very clear that they are using AI, it's like, okay, cool, you do you. Like, it's not my thing. I prefer seeing actual work from people. It's not my thing, but, cool, you do you. No problem with that. The problem arises when people lie about it. That's where I start to have an issue. So that's my stance on that.
So let's get into this. This is the art piece in question that cracked everything wide open.
Okay, let's see if I can spot the AI in this. Let's see if I can spot it. Okay, well, facial anatomy is not great on this one. I would have expected better from an AI generated image. Facial anatomy, not great. You can put that jawline down a little bit. Also, it goes out too far. It goes past the ear. That's not supposed to happen. Yeah, so the facial anatomy is just not good on this. The bubbles look a little weird. That could just be me. Yeah, the bubbles are like, oh, you can draw a circle. That's fine, but you could have fixed it up a little bit more, right? Okay, I see where the AI comes in. The eyes are extremely AI. I see it. I'm seeing it. Why are they a different shape? That's not supposed to happen. Also, the eyebrows are wildly different. I get that the eyebrows will look a little bit different in perspective, but this doesn't look like the face is at an angle. That is weird. I'm used, as a professional live 2D rigger, I'm used to looking at facial angles, especially in anime style. That's a weird angle. I don't like that angle. That's weird. So I guess the eyes and eyebrows is where that comes in. Because you didn't have to draw the eyebrows wildly different. I think nobody purposefully draws them wildly different. Even beginner artists will have them kind of the same. But yeah, the eyes look extremely AI to me. Okay, I see it.
On first glance, the rendering of the piece looks really pretty. It's very colorful, very glowy with a lot of underwater pastels.
Okay, I'm sorry. At first glance, I noticed the facial anatomy mistakes. I do very much apologize that was the first thing I pointed out. Maybe I'm just a little bit too negative.
If we do look a little bit deeper, there are some anatomical mistakes that, we could maybe argue, like
there we
lot
go.
of beginner artists make, newer artists make, even more experienced artists have a slip up like.
Okay, yeah, I think the bad facial anatomy stands out because of the rendering. Because the rendering is better than the facial anatomy. I think that's why it stands out so much.
That, I've done that where like the jawline, the shape of the head kind of goes out a little bit far. So I've been there. I'm not trying to say that I'm holier than thou, anything like that, but there are reasons to think that AI have been used in this process. Now, this video is posted by the account by the name of Stanford Freaky Pines. So this was the original post on that account where the post is now down, but the original post that blew this all up on the account had 128,000 likes. It's like a slideshow. So the first photo is like a meme drawing where there's a stick figure guy who is holding his phone, sad, being like, nobody likes my art, and then a really happy little character.
Okay, so we got a definite liar here. This shows intent to lie. Good, great, we got him. It's not even like, oh, I posted this, it is AI, but I forgot to give it the AI tag, you know? No, this is intent. This is intent to lie.
They're looking in front of their laptop being like, yay, 5 views. They showcase their art piece. This is the art piece in question, the rainbow girl underwater.
Yeah, I see it.
The mouth, nose, and eyes are all different as well.
And
don't use AI and go to such lengths to pretend it's actually your art.
so let me point out like some of the things I believe they're indicating for being suspicious. The first one being the use of the line work. So it's a little bit odd. It can be an artistic choice, but it's not necessarily as common to see people who draw with like line art for only half the piece. They do use line art, but it just disappears sometimes, right? You can.
Okay, to be fair, no, my line work is a little more consistent because I actually like doing line art. I'm one of the weirdos who likes doing line art. But sometimes I will just not draw line art for the hair. I'll draw it mostly everywhere else, but just not for the hair. So yeah, I kind of, but if it just disappears randomly, then that's weird. Although there are people who just kind of forget to do a bit of line art. I've seen that before as well. It's not a definite. I think when it comes to spotting AI, it's like clues, like many clues together. If you spot 1 or 2 mistakes, it could still be a human artist. If you spot a lot of them, it's probably AI. And like I said, the eyes are extremely AI to me. I don't know.
You see the very like solid black line work that is not present for the nose, but is present for the eyes. There is a line work for the ear. And again, there is like a floating ear right here.
Yeah, that is weird.
Again, for this one, the line work for the ear disappears behind a strand of hair and it never reappears again.
The mouth, nose, and eyes are all different as well.
I would say what's a bit suspicious to me, which is what is making me think this is AI and somebody trying to trace off of AI artwork and not just a beginner artist, is there's a lot of inconsistencies in the piece that typically you don't see with beginner artists. So for one, the eyes. AI art, when they make irises, they tend to make them very different. So even though for these irises, the color is the same, the way it's rendered is really different. Do you see this? The light blue kind of like flows up and wiggles a little bit and drops back down. It kind of looks like a cowboy hat if you kind of like don't really look at it too closely. And this one looks more like a stingray, like a little.
Also, there's no way someone couldn't draw even kind of a circle. That is so janky. I guess, like, I'm not shitting on beginner artists. But everyone can draw kind of a circle, I think. If you draw it fast enough, it'll come out as kind of a circle. That's the trick to that.
Little like manatee kind of popping up. So that's just a bit odd. And then not to mention the disappearing line art. We just have line art that swoops down, disappears. So weird things connect. Like
yes, however, that is consistent with the other eye as well. The line disappears in the exact same spot. I don't think that's the problem here. I don't think that is necessarily the problem. It's everything else.
The eyeliner goes across the entire eye, swoops around the water, like the inner corner of the eye, and just disappears. And then the white of the eye, that is the barrier between the white of the eye and the tear duct, swoops down to then form the rest of the line that will be the lower lash line. It's just a bit of an odd choice.
I think the parts where the eyeball and the tear ducts are, that's also screams AI to me for some reason. I don't know what it is. It just screams AI to me. I'm very bad at pinpointing things. I just know if it doesn't look right.
And not to mention the fact that the eye just disappears. Like, do you see what I mean here? There is the iris, and then there is a gap, and then the eyeliner. And you see it happens on this side too.
Yeah,
you
it's
could
weird.
argue like maybe it's the waterline for the upper lash line that's showing. I don't think this is the case here because it doesn't make too much sense. Because again, typically people who render at such a high level, if they do draw the waterline in, they would do it for like both the upper and lower lash line. Those are just kind of some elements that look a little bit confusing. Not to mention the completely different shapes for the eyebrows. So you might be like, oh, maybe these are beginner mistakes, beginner art mistakes, right? They're
Also, there's a bit of shine on one of the eyelids, but not on the other one. And I don't think that is the lighting, because it hasn't been made obvious that the other side has any kind of shade to it. So that looks off to me as well.
maybe they're newer, but then they had posted a speed paint like proving quote unquote it's their art, and the speed paint is even more suspicious. So the speed paint is then posted by this account by the name of Joe Mama Aho.
That's a great name. That is a great name. So they have a speed paint. Yeah, people will usually give you speed paint to prove that they're legitimate artists. To be honest, I don't do speed paints, and that's because I have to draw the same line a million times to get it right. I am extremely dyspraxic, and I don't claim to be an artist. I'm a live 2D rigger. I do rigging. I do VTuber model rigging. I draw VTuber models as well. But you can see that they're very human-made. But I do not do speed paints from start to finish just because of how long it takes me, you know? And it's embarrassing because it doesn't look good from the start. It never looks good from the start. It's embarrassing. Yeah, but because all of my art are VTuber models, you can very much guarantee that they're hand-drawn. Because AI can't do VTuber models, they can't do the layering for that. I'm very particular with my layering. So I guess you can see by my rigs that my art is all hand-drawn.
And so they have the speed painting here. They do kind of like talk over it a little bit, so we'll just look at this though.
Don't tell me people, Ashley, believe this is not AI, especially with the fake speed paint time-lapse. I'm risking my only art account. For this because
By the way, this drawing in the background is their piece. It's not the
Okay,
speed paint.
got
it is
it,
too
got it.
unfair. To artists out there wasting hours to make art for little to zero view. To summon that traced AI art with for okay fans defending them without even differentiate a real-time lapse. I understand that everyone have.
Wait, they have 40k followers? Wait, hold on. Did I understand that right? Because in that case, posting the meme like, oh yay, 5 likes. Ooh, that's an ick. That's an ick for me. No. If you've got a large following, whenever someone does that with a large following, that's yeesh. Personal dislike.
Their own way to start drawing an art, but there are too many questionable art choice in their speed paint. First, no sketcher base.
So
Just
here's the
straight
speed
up
paint.
line art that look traced.
Okay.
There are people start with a color base, shapes, or sketch line. If you slow down, you can easily see the line are traced.
Does anyone start with the facial features? Does anyone ever start with the facial features? Because, I mean, you can draw those, like, lines between them. But, like, how... Is that how the face got fucked up? I'm sorry. No, but is that how the face around it got messed up? You don't start with the facial features. You start with the overall structure of the face. And also, the facial features are too detailed right off the bat. You usually start with like something rough to know where everything is gonna be. I mean, not everyone does it that way, obviously, but especially if you're a beginner artist, you do not start like this. That is not a great way to start.
From the AI art, but they are trying to see legitimate by faking doing face line to measure where eyes and nose should be placed.
So let me just pause here. So, because I know it's really fast, so I apologize. But yeah,
Okay.
so this is like if you stop their sketch process, this is like one of the frames you get, which is really odd. There's lines that don't make sense.
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know if she's going to point it out, but this face shape, the chin and jawline, is wildly better than the final outcome. How? Why did you start with something that looks good and then throw it out? Because this looks better. Why? What happened? I'm confused. What happened? This is not the same piece, is it? No, it doesn't look like the same piece because this already, like, it already looks better than the other one. This is not the same piece.
Now, some people do draw based on the anatomical head, but they are not. So what I'm referring to is this, like kind of like a 3D model that shows the head in respect to the planes of the face, right? So we have the cheekbones, the nose, this.
I don't know anyone who uses that with anime style art. I'm gonna be real with you. Because I've seen this picture that perfectly describes that anime faces aren't based on human faces, but rather cat faces. So that method would not make a lot of sense for anime style art.
Is not that. So that's why, to me, this kind of reads like it's a fake process, right? Where they're trying to fake the art process to make it look like they know what they're doing.
This seems random.
It just looks very suspicious. And you might be like, oh, Kat, but like, what if they're just a beginner artist who doesn't know the planes of the face well? But then you look at the level of rendering they are allegedly capable of achieving, and then it doesn't make as much sense anymore. Because somebody who can render to this degree would reasonably understand how the planes of the face work. It could be a little bit off, but it wouldn't be this.
I am so confused because the face is like in the same perspective, the mouth is opened the same way, but it looks so much better than the fully rendered piece. What happened?
Is off, right? In some other aspects that are a little bit odd to me,
yeah,
is
the
they
eyebrows.
block in where the eyebrow should be.
Why is one of them curved like that and the other one isn't? What happened? I mean, this does not look like a rough sketch, if I'm gonna be honest. I've seen rough sketches. This is not one of them.
And then they draw in some of the hairs of the eyebrow in the front. And then on the left eye, they just draw it completely above the eyebrow. It's not even in line with the eyebrow. So some more speed paint that we have here.
Bruh, who draw anatomy like this?
And yeah, like, again, this to me does not look like a beginner artist who is just doesn't fully understand anatomy. This to me looks like somebody who's tried to fake an art process.
Girl.
That neck, though. That neck, though. Yeah, that seems a little thick. The neck seems a little thick. I guess it would make sense if you fix that with shading. But it doesn't look good in the sketch. I'm so confused.
Fully understand anatomy. This to me looks like somebody who's tried to fake an art process.
Girl, what kind of line is this?
And look at this.
Oh yeah,
of
that's
this
weird.
type of line work in your sketch. So
That's
you're
weird.
able to do a sketch this detailed. It basically can pass as line art, but you don't know the planes of the face. And again, I'm not saying you have to memorize this. Most people just Google a reference image of this and go off of that, right? You don't. Some artists have it memorized. Some people don't.
Is so traced. Here is one of my personally questionable part for them. As an artist, you usually split the background and the main character layer to keep clear on which layer you are drawing on. For example, I have 3 layers to make my MC more blend into the surrounding color scheme. Then darker and lighter shading last more color to reflect the blue light from the sky. But they didn't even do that. And it's so sus that they split every inch of coloring part as if they are trying to copy the same coloring as the AI pictures.
Okay, to be fair, I have a million layers as well, but probably for a different reason. Yeah, usually if you're doing an illustration rather than, you know, something that's supposed to move, you would have the entire piece flattened. And even if you're like unsure of your process, you would copy and flatten, you know? You'd have all of the original layers underneath in a folder securely, but then you'd have the flattened piece on top of that, and then you'd start shading the environmental lighting Yeah, I guess everyone has a different way of drawing, but I don't trust anyone who gets environmental lighting right on the first pass. I don't trust anyone who gets it right the first time.
Because if you draw, you will have different layers of coloring for different steps of shading and lighting. But them
Yes.
straight up look like they are trying to mimic the original art by coloring without even understanding the basics of any shading, lighting, color values. I will apologize to anyone if I ever wrong.
And I agree. That's why it's suspicious. So, sorry, I'm bringing Bob back. Bob, my stick figure.
Hi, Bob.
Okay, so I was using Bob as an example for another video. If you've seen that video, you're the OG. Actually, I don't know what order these videos will go up. Maybe you'll see it later. Who knows? Okay, but I was just using Bob as an example because, sorry if it looks jank, I drew it with my mouse. But most
That's great.
people who draw characters, maybe they put like a little bit of a background color, then they will draw in their character and they will do some shading and highlighting, you know, like reasonable amount of shading and highlighting for what makes sense. And
Yeah, that's
then
fair.
if you were to draw your character in harsh environmental lighting, so being underwater would count as some pretty harsh environmental lighting, most people out the gate will not get the lighting correct. They will do some basic coloring, whatever. And then once they draw in the background, they will blend their character in. So let's say in the case of Bob, let's say our guy Bob is like underwater, you know, he's very, very underwater. I don't know, just put in some colors on Bob, okay? Then
Yep.
like a lot of artists typically will, I don't know, try to blend their character into the backgrounds after they've selected what color is going to be what. Maybe something like this, you know? And then
Yeah, that's about right.
maybe if you're being really fancy, I'm so sorry, this is going to look really bad. I'm doing it with my mouse. You might
Some
oh, jeez.
highlights,
You
yep.
might erase a little bit because that's like the shine of the water, you know, kind of like bouncing off of you, something, and the third. I hope you guys catch my drift, okay?
Okay, can I just say, even with mouse drawing, that still looks really good. That still looks really good. I like that.
This is like kind of crap because I'm using my mouse, but you kind of see my point, right? Because there's going to be some like water reflections up here, yada yada. But anyways, you will then draw in the harsh environmental lighting after you finish rendering the piece. Typically out the gate, like you don't see people have a completely white background and then they're like, I know exactly what colors I need to choose to blend my character in. So I'm just going to start drawing with that color. I'm just going to make Bob this color and then make his body this color. And then their eyes are going to be this color.
Okay. Hold. So, I did say that I'm not really an artist, but I do have an example of how I usually shade, I think, if I kept everything in different layers, because I have a habit of merging things, okay? I have a habit of merging things. So if I can find it... Okay, so... Art with Vyris. This piece, this is a piece I did a while ago, before I got extremely super busy with VTuber rigging. So, if we turn a few layers off here, right? I have sketch, and then I have the sky. Obviously, I merged a lot of this. I merged so much of this, but we have sky, and then we have the water drawn in, and then, and then some mist shading on top of that. Then we have the ground. And then the line art for the ground, which I somehow kept separated. And then we have some splashing of the water here. These are all the merged layers. And here we have the character in a different folder, because of course it's in a different folder. Oh, there's the shading. There's the environmental shading. Okay, so we have sketch. This is what my sketch looked like. Don't judge me. Rough sketch. And then this is in a background layer because this is like the lighting from the horns. And then I did this on one layer. I'm pretty sure I merged this down, right? I'm pretty sure I merged this down. I did all of the shading and like just merged that bitch. And And then this is more horn lighting. And then here's the environmental shading. This is where it is. And then there's like pieces up here that I erased for lighting. The titties, more lighting on it because they stick out, obviously. And then we have more lighting. This is like the rim lighting. And then we have more lighting coming from the top because obviously there's light coming from the sky here. And then more lighting, which is the light coming from the horns. And then we have the rain, rain coming off of like the horns and going around her, right? And then like the more droplets. And then more like rain around her, right? And then the rain on the environment that's on top of it. And then my watermark. So this is what my process looks like. I'm sorry, I went on a side tangent, but it's kind of related to what we were watching, right? So that was my side tangent on how I do art. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to the video. I'm sorry. Derailed.
And then you draw the background and you're like, ta-da, Bob's blended it. Like,
Yep.
Most of the time it doesn't work like that. Absolute units of an art god can do that. Those types of people typically also have like 20 years of industry experience. When I see that, it's a little bit of a red flag. They could be the absolute goat of an artist, or they could be using some nefarious methods, but it's not exactly the end of the world because some people can do that. And then Joe Mama put up a second video.
Hi, Guy, I'm here to update a few things about my last TikTok video, because I never thought it blew up this much. First, I would like to apologize. The part about drawing methods, which include the no sketch, line art, coloring, layering, art style, and more. I didn't mean to offend or.
So yeah, TLDR, basically, a lot of people got offended with their other video because they were like, hey, because they don't draw with like a sketch, it's weird. And a lot of people were upset because they're like, I don't draw with a sketch. I've had this in my videos as well, and I'll just say this here, guys. I don't think Joe was like this, and I am on the same boat where I wasn't talking about you, right? Like, if you are not...
Yeah, no, even if you have different drawing methods, that was weird. That was objectively weird how they did it.
Using AI art, then I'm not talking about you. But I get it. Maybe it came off a certain way, right? Like, the thing is, to accuse or like indicate that somebody is using AI art, it's you take everything together as a whole. If you are somebody who draws without a sketch, you're the fucking goat. I wish I could do that, but you did legitimately draw it yourself. You know, it's everything together. So like if somebody draws without a sketch and they don't undo ever, so their piece is perfect out the gate with no undoing. And
oh yeah, that is weird. Not having to undo anything, that's weird. Like I cannot fathom that. I cannot fathom that. I sometimes draw without a sketch, by the way. Like if I'm super confident in what I'm doing, if I'm doing something that I've done like a million times before, I can draw without a sketch. Like, especially when I'm working on like VTuber models. I've drawn so many VTuber models. Sometimes I can just go without a sketch at certain parts of the model. And I'm like, okay, I got this. We're good. But like everything else is weird too. You do not make those facial anatomy mistakes and be able to draw environmental lighting in right off the bat. That is objectively strange.
And they are really, really capable of drawing the character in some strong environmental lighting that typically people need a lot of years of art experience to do. But they also somehow make beginner anatomy mistakes that looks odd. Like all of that together is why people are like, hey, this looks a little bit suspicious and like it could be AI art. If you just do like one or two of these things, that does not mean you're using AI art, and you will know that you're not using AI art. I think that's the message they're trying to get across. And again, I also want to add one more disclaimer. A lot of beginners will sometimes see these types of videos and be like, well, I'm a beginner and I make these beginner.
Yeah, we don't need this many disclaimers. People can go fuck themselves. That's a joke. I immediately felt bad after saying that. No, beginners are objectively different from people who use AI. So, if we're talking about AI, we are not targeting beginners, obviously. Yee.
anatomy mistakes. If you're a beginner artist, your art will look like a beginner did it, and nobody will accuse you of using AI. It is just when the level of rendering skill is so high, but the level of anatomy understanding, composition understanding, and like the understanding of why things are done a specific way is not there, then it just like, how did this happen? You know, again, there are like extreme niche cases where somebody has an extremely high rendering skill and they just only like rendering, so they just completely never bother to study anatomy. There are people like that, but they're extremely niche cases.
Yeah, and also there were a lot of signs that was AI. Like it wasn't just not knowing the facial anatomy, but having good rendering skills. No, it was a lot of things that pointed to AI there. So I think people can usually tell. Also, I am not in favor of randomly accusing artists of using AI ever. So only if there's like obvious signs can you be like, that's a little bit weird. But yeah.
Now I am going to talk about the creator after doing more research and people findings credit to a Chikoris video. They have a video showing the art that are either traced or heavily referenced without crediting. Original artists are just simply tracing over AI.
So they do reference a video, and I will show you that video now. So this is the account that posted it, Chikoris. And I'm going to mute it because there's no text to speech, so I don't want to get in trouble. But basically the caption reads, it's just her art looks so much like other art that I've seen online. So this is an example of that person's art piece, and this is a photo that was found online. Like,
I mean, I don't think so. That's a very, very common pose. That one might be a bit of a stretch. A bit of a stretch.
Again, the ears are basically the same. The posing is the same. Well, some of the coloring is different though. And then the caption on the text.
Okay, yeah. That one is almost a one-to-one. It's not traced, because the facial anatomy on the top one is just really off. So that's definitely not traced. But it is like draw this in your style, I guess. It's like replicated, not traced, but replicated. I hate that specific TTS voice that video is using. Yeah, we're just dealing with it right now.
Reads like, can y'all see the resemblance? Maybe I'm just stupid. So here we have another side by side, one of allegedly their artwork and another one of some art.
Okay, yeah, to me, just looks like they used it as a reference. You'd know if it was traced or not. Yeah, exactly. That's absolutely not traced, but it's like a draw this in your style kind of thing, right?
That you could find on Pinterest. And
okay, however, a draw this in your style is only okay if you credit the original. Let me add that. I need to add that. That's only okay if you credit the original. It is perfectly fine to draw another art piece in your style if you credit it.
And again, if you look at the side-by-side, their art is extremely heavily inspired by this Pinterest piece, right down to the same color as everything. It's like they color selected off of the piece. And here's the thing. Some artists do this, right? They do art studies where they will study another person's artwork and they will try to replicate it in their own, like on their own, to try to learn the artist's techniques. This is a really valid thing that a lot of people do. Don't post it and claim it's yours. Because by posting it and not giving credit to the original artist, you're essentially unspokenly claiming the art piece as yours. That is where it's, in my opinion, no longer. One is their art piece and one is another.
Yeah. And this is another one of those, they used it as an art study. They try to draw it themselves. It's, again, not traced. You can tell that it's not traced. There's no tracing involved in this. But there's no credit, and that's the problem.
Their piece that is on Pinterest, and if you look at the side-by-side, it is again like the same colors, basically color selected. It's not necessarily traced, but it's so extremely heavily referenced that it's like uncomfortable, right? Doesn't seem like any credit was given for this piece to the original artist as well. I could be wrong, right? Maybe there was some credit and I didn't see it because it's gone. Here is another one. This is a Twitter user by the name of Shiro, and this is their art. They have posted art looking for emergency comms. Here we can see what looks to be what the other person drew, which is
Again, heavily inspired. It's like they used it as an art study, but like you can use things as an art study. You can draw things in your style as long as you credit. Like credit is so important. You're gonna get in trouble if you don't credit. It's not that difficult.
is like extremely referenced. And then just a direct drawing off of Spy X Family. And then this one, again, this is a pixel image of Lux from League, the Cosmic Lux skin. And this is their version of it with, again, like no credit whatsoever. And then another side-by-side of quote unquote their piece. And if any of you guys can understand Spanish, I would love if you translated it because the artist, quote unquote, pieces, their posts are all in Spanish on ArtStation. Again, it's like completely color selected as well. The color profile is the exact same. Again, another side-by-side of it being the same with the tutorial. And the Chikoris account writes, so I'm so sorry, actually, no, I'm not. When you take art, come others and alter it in the slightest, you're not taking inspiration, you're straight up stealing. Using a template still isn't even your art, so maybe actually credit the real artist. And again, allegedly the original artist is 15, so they are young. Let's not send hate to them, right? Let's not do that. They're young, they can learn to be better. But going back to Joe's video, now that we see...
Wait, was that the same artist as the one who used AI, or was that someone else? I'm slightly confused. Crediting is both the easiest part of the whole process and the proper thing to do. Yes, absolutely. Lunch done, now to resume doing nothing at work. Oof.
Seen that?
These of this art are clearly traced by AI too. Cause tell me why I found the same categories of AI art print on AliExpress.
And yeah, I was gonna say too, right? But those Pinterest pieces that they were referencing does look like AI art, but it's hard.
Okay. In that case, you don't really have anyone to credit, do you? I don't think you should be taking AI as a reference. Just because AI is inherently morally not in the clear. That's a bit of a gray area. That's definitely a bit of a gray area. I mean, if you're gonna credit, post a link to the original and be like, hey, this is AI that I'm doing a study off of. I don't think you should be doing a study off of AI, but
Hard to tell if it's
just don't claim it as your own. You know, just don't claim it as your own. I don't know. This gets a lot trickier. I think AI is good for general idea formulation anyway. Yes, but not if it's like a one-to-one, you know?
just like a zoomed in crop of the image, right? If we don't get to see the full image, it's hard to tell whether it is or not, especially if it's kind of like low quality like this. So I don't want to throw around accusations without like fully seeing it.
AI art.
But
Better
it
say
definitely
they
looks
tried
sus.
changing the face shape and make the pic bigger, so that even they are called out, they can just say is heavily referenced. I'm not sure if it's an original drawn pic or AI, since I haven't found the artist yet. But they also do the same thing as the last one. This one is also unsure if it's original art or AI art, since I haven't found the artist.
You AI a draft and you manually recreate it. Okay, so the reason why I don't think beginners should use AI as a study is because if you are just beginning to draw, you likely won't know why things are done a certain way. And you have to learn the why. And the thing about AI is that there is no why. AI doesn't know why things are drawn a certain way. So they're going to mess things up. And if you learn from AI, you are going to mess things up as well. You're never gonna get the hang of the why. You know? So it's not good to do as a study. For example, I have made some VTuber models that had AI references. Like the client gave me an AI reference and was like, I want this to be my model. And I was like, okay, bet. I'm not against AI references, by the way, for like character references if someone wants a VTuber model with that design. However, I change details. I do always disclaim that if you're gonna give me an AI reference, I will change details because some of those things do not make sense in like movement or anything really. AI doesn't know why details are the way they are. I do know why details are the way they are, so I will change it if it does not make sense to me. Does that make sense to everyone here? I change things if there's no logic behind it, right? Okay.
Being heavily referenced without any credits. Before anyone trying to defend them again, you can just search up. With your finger is not that hard. You guys can look at a GCH or is videos for more old arts that are heavily refreshed or traced with AI art. I don't understand if they are able to have efforts too. Make fake Speedpaint time-lapse. Why don't they learn to draw instead?
Okay, I don't think we should use the word traced in this case because they absolutely did not trace. There was no sign of tracing there. I think we're throwing that out as an extra accusation. I don't think we need any extra accusations. We're gonna stick with the ones we know.
In their older drawings, they are mostly just heavily referenced. They have the potential to learn. You can learn by tracing as long. You have the creator permission. And credits them, don't get me wrong. I understand the slow process. To improve to become the artist you wanted to be. When I was starting out 12 years old maybe, I traced an art once because I know that I am able to achieve that kind of...
Oh yeah, I think most kids who are interested in drawing have traced at some point, right? I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, I grew up in a time where sharing your art online wasn't that common yet. So I have a lot of like paper drawings that I traced over like manga that I had. I never shared that ever. It was just art practice for me. But that is how kids learn to draw. That is fair. Just, you know, you can do that without ever sharing it. You know, not everything needs to be online. I'm gonna sound like an old lady here, but not everything needs to be shared online, right? Definitely, I've traced an artwork of a character from digital to a physical piece of paper, but I never shared it. Yeah, exactly.
Skill. Without crediting the artist, looking back, at my old self I know how wrong it is, and how much it hurts the original artist just because I want a shortcut to achieve what I want. I'm only making a video because I have clear evidence that proving it I traced, but please don't jump anyone or harass anyone for this.
And then the Cheery account they were referencing, the people in the comments were referencing this account that had allegedly been getting bullied for talking about it.
Okay, can I just say, here is something you can do if you are tracing to learn, but you really want to share something online to show your work, right? Don't share the traced work, but once you've traced a few pieces, draw your own piece based on what you've learned and share that. And then credit the pieces that you've learned from. That is something you can do. That is something that is morally in the clear. You can do that. I definitely struggle with that sometimes. I put enough work into it, even if it isn't typical good quality, that I just gotta share it. Yeah, exactly. But that is like why I'm saying you can share something with credit if it's not a one-to-one trace. You can trace, just don't share the trace, and then draw something yourself with what you've learned, and then credit it, right?
I haven't seen the post. Maybe they deleted it. If that's the case, I feel bad for them because they were not wrong for mentioning that there was AI usage, likely, right? And this is the account now. All the posts are gone. And the bio reads, instead of worrying about my life, worry about your life. And that's kind of the end of it, right? I would definitely say with a sentiment like, oh, you know, it's like they're just tracing AI, so it's not that big of a deal. I would say it's still bad though, right? Because like you're setting a false precedent for a lot of people, you know? People are gonna look at you, other 15-year-olds are gonna look at you and be like, and compare and be like, wow, why can't I draw like this person? This person was able to draw so well in such a short amount of time. Why can't I make such a progression like this person? Why can't I do this?
That's also a really good point. Yeah, you are setting the wrong example for others. You're setting the wrong example for others. Although some people do learn faster than others. But like nobody should feel bad about that. That's like you're on your own art journey. You do you. Teenagers are dumb. I'm sorry. Side tangent. Teenagers are dumb, and that's not their fault. It's the scrambled brain. It happens to everyone. Last time I did that was freehand myself, copy and credit the original. Yeah, and that's okay. That is completely okay.
And it's because they couldn't either. They heavily referenced and allegedly traced AI artwork to achieve what they did. And you just didn't know. So that's what I do think. There could be more harm potentially caused with people faking AI art as their art and tracing it than people might think. But again, don't send hate to anybody involved, right? This is just an educational piece to like kind of make you guys aware of elements and how people can fake AI arts. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below.
Okay. Yeah. Great video. I enjoyed this. And I got to go on my side tangents. Okay, yeah, that was fun. That was fun.